great books, and not only in magic but in literature, are ones that you can reread. And every time you read it, you see something that you missed the first time. It's still fresh. That's a good thing about words as opposed to movies. The worst movies tend to be remakes. I know a favorite movie of Steve is Young Frankenstein. So when he made Young Frankenstein, afterwards I'm sure Mel Brooks says, oh, that's actually, I'm pretty happy with that. But man, there was all kinds of stuff that, wasn't as good. I could have tweaked it here. It's got flaws. But it's certainly good enough. He's not going to redo it. Now, if somebody comes along and say, yeah, I like that, I'm going to do a remake of Young Frankenstein. Well, they'll screw it up. I'll give you an example of a remake that was terrible. Psycho. And the director that did it, Van Zandt, is a good director. He said, well, I'm going to make it better. I'm going to do it in color. And I'm going to have to, and it just didn't work. But you're stuck with movies, but with card tricks in words, you can remix, you can remake, you can reconstitute, you can tweak and twiddle and fiddle and do all of that. And you need to do that with Marlo. And I can't name too many other card guys in the history of all of the literature that is going to do the same thing. There are other guys that you can enjoy, but it didn't have the range. I think Elmsley, there's a subtext to Elmsley stuff, but his range he was in a little narrower area. He never widened out from there. And quantity doesn't equal quality. Marlo was prolific, close to 4,000 items. That's almost one a week through his whole career. And there's other people. Stuart James was prolific. Max Maven is prolific. But then you look back and you say, well, all right, they did 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 tricks. How many do you remember? How many actually stuck out of that group? Well, Stuart James, skill, open prediction. What else?
Right.
And
Pocket Ethereal.
Yeah,
That's a real popular one.
He had. No, I'm not going to go that far. He had some stuff, but I mean, it's like, I think it would haunt Elmsley. I would have loved to. I only got a chance to meet him once to ask him, because I said, you're going to go to your grave, and the footnote in history that you're remembered for is the Elmsley count.
Right.
And even you would say that was a combination of two other things. I don't want that to be my legacy. If I did, I would have called it the Elmsley count, not the ghost count.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want your legacy to be? You're not known as you've admitted this many times that you're not a creative in the sense that you come up with new tricks. You're a great finesser and tweaker and fixer, to use that great term.
That's a good question that requires a complicated answer. I would say my legacy is, through the course of my contribution, was to record all of this stuff in a kind of a coherent way, and to talk about it so that people will pay attention and look back on it. And certainly I did more of that with Marlo than anybody else. I would have frankly never written anything had Ibidem not stopped writing and putting out the magazine on a regular basis, because I got, at the same time I met Eddie Fields, and then I met Marlo, and he showed me all this stuff, and Marlo was piecemealing it out in different places. And I said, God, this stuff needs it. And he says, well, why don't you put it out? Really? And I said, because I didn't know any better. I said, okay. Because I thought that would be easy. He'll send it to me, and all I do is retype it. No, that's not it.
Here's a question for you, John. This is, now we're getting off topic here. Marlo's the
Everything
topic.
is off topic. Everything goes back to Marlo. Bring it up, king cake. I can bring it back to Marlo.
That's right. It is Mardi Gras right now. You started with the Eddie Fields book, The Artful Dodges. That was 1968 when that came out. But then when you look at your next book, which was 71, that sort of led into, you know, the Yod series, what began as the Yod series, and into the Hierophant. Or the Hierophant came first, and then, but so now you started, what did you find that you had this, here's my voice? Or
No, I didn't think of
how did
anything.
that go? How did you go from the chapbook of the Eddie Fields book to the underground revolutionary kind of, I know that was the times.
But in the 60s, I'm reading underground newspapers. I'm reading Tom Wolfe's New Journalism. I'm reading Hunter Thompson. I'm reading all of the... They were considered not necessarily New Age, but they were considered rebels. They said, I don't want the boring, laid-back, journalistic style. And I'm reading the magic magazines, and like I'm thinking, like, this reads like something that American Legion magazine. I said, where's the excitement? Where's the passion? Where's the stuff that I see when the guys session? I'm not seeing this happening there. Where's the humor? I don't see any humor. I don't see any satire. I say some of these people are, frankly, funny, laughable, you know. And so I said, I'm gonna start putting that in. I'm gonna do satire, and I'm gonna do criticism. That not every book that comes out is any good. And I'm going to say, you know, what's wrong with Pharaoh fantasy compared to Marlo? What's wrong with Harry Inane, as I call him, Harry Lorraine? What the hell's wrong with this picture? So that was part of it. And the second thing was, I started seeing patterns, and if, you know, I was looking for the two phrases that I like as emergent properties. I start seeing there's a lot of versions of the open prediction, for example. And the first thing I wrote in the Hierophant was a big section on the open prediction. And that led to analyzing the ones that Stuart James had. And I said, wait a minute. There's something to be said for compiling these tricks. Well, that led to the Yod series, because of whatever the trick was. And I saw, I was the one that found this clock principle with a reverse count that was in pallbearers. And I said, this is, and I had the Technicolor Hour, and that, you know, perpetuated other versions. And before you know it, I said, you know, you can put out a whole manuscript based on one principle, the clock. Mm-hmm. That became another Yod series. Then the universal card. And then that could have gone off into everywhere and nowhere.
It was going to go off onto the wild card, which didn't happen until years later with L&L.
There would have been a big one, and that got totally unwieldy on the collectors. If I had done the first compilation, it would have been 200 or 300 pages. In the interim, before I even did any more on it, I put that in different magazines. Father Cyprian did a big, thick spiral bound book called The Bottom Collectors. Anyway, I saw the compilations and figuring out how do you put part of this tapestry together. And I still do compilations. I still go back and I'm interested in what about Oil and Queens and Oil and Water and Reset and Cards to Pocket. You mentioned one, Pocketherial.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a whole little manuscript on it. You can break it down, and what that does to the student, you're cherry picking it and making him, he's lazy, but he can analyze that and say, all right, I've read all of these. What emerges from that in my own understanding and the way I want to apply this stuff? And that started all the writing. Card fixes came about when I realized that a lot of these methods were fixes. People were saying, oh, I did a fix on this. I thought, okay, put out a trilogy of card finesse, card fixes, and the one that never came out called card synergism.
A real world card stuff.
Yes, that was it. It was going to be, how do you take these fixes and finesses and put them together, if you have 5 of them, into a routine that's going to be maybe 15 minutes long. And at that time I had some that later on, Martin Nash was a guy that created synergistic routines. And he put out manuscripts based on that. But I wanted to also say, here's the principle of synergism. What is it? How do you do it?
Right.
And that still might come around. That might be something that people should write about in the same way that I encourage Steve to say, what are the precepts of the monk's way, which marries Marlovian detail to the notion of the Hamannesque idea of subtlety. He's not quite there yet in drilling down.
We've already been over that.
No, we haven't gone deep
just
enough.
getting warmed up.
We haven't gone deep enough into that because you can. Steve's got the generalized notion of what it is. It's like you give the chapter heading. You could have a chapter heading saying, Hammond realized that the ultimate effect is in the spectator's mind. Yeah, cut that off before you do. But that would be a whole book.
Right.
And those kind of books resonate and have more power than a collection of tricks.
Yeah.
The big picture. And that's the future of where's magic going to be as a performance art in the future. These bigger principles have nothing to do with the props that you're using. There might be a day then when you can't get, they used to have these things called playing cards. A day that would be.
I have to be dead by then.
Well, I had my first moment of terror when I saw these assholes that put the round cards out on coasters. And I thought, oh no, don't do this. Because I picked them up and I said, you can't Pharaoh these things. You can't do anything. They suck. You got to have the cards, the cards.
The idea of the compilation brought up in my mind the idea of how Marlo would almost make compilations of his own thinking. In other words, he would just crack open that plot.
Future classic.
And come up with the 10 that were...
Future classic. And even within that 1946 book, he had a gambling routine that had phases. And each phase you could do separately. You could do the blackjack demonstration, but not only was it the routine, but it was synergistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Magic 7 is synergistic. It's different effects that are all related. But that's why you want to study that. You may say, I'm never going to do this trick, but I'm going to study the structure. Because the only guy I ever saw do it regularly, besides Marlo, was Art Wagon.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody do it.
Wait a minute.
I
done
say
it.
you do it, and yeah.
But it's not as funny as you remember.
No.
Art Wagon doing it.
And if I ask you to do it now, you'd say,
I'm like,
well,
it's like
I gotta
walking a tightrope.
I've got to reconstruct it now. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know how to do it now.
That's true.
You done now? Is it?
Well, we just talked about, we straddled the 50s.
Well, the 40s.
Remember the seminal book of 1953.
Oh, the Cardician? That one? You know what happened as I pointed out to you when I sent you that thing on Christine?
What happened?
Well, she had his operation
Yes.
in 51 and 52. And Marlo put Christine out
Yes.
in 53.
Mm-hmm.
Ed Wood put out Glenn or Glenda on Christine Jurgensen in 53. And Robert Orban and others published things in 53. So 53 was the banner year for transsexual card trick.
That was the zenith.
Yes. And Marlo was even subtle there.
Right.
Because he people might say, well, why did he, Christine, what the hell? You read about it and it's a straightforward, you got 4 kings and they changed to 4 queens. An application so you could say, here's another thing you can do with buckle, double buckle, triple buckle, regular buckle. Before they started with all the other false counts. They said, boom, there it is, here's a nice thing. But then he has, and the only patter he has on there, he's, where he says, you know what the name of this trick is? No, I don't know. Christine. And in 1953, in the bar room, they got it.
Yeah.
That would get a good house.
I
Now, if you
mentioned,
do it today, they go,
You have to say,
What?
Caitlin.
yeah,
Yeah.
Caitlin.
We,
Or when Minch put out the Christine Jorgensen card trick, he said, you need to change it to Renee Richards. Because in 79, Renee Richards was the chicks, that was well known. So
Yeah, I mentioned we have a Facebook page for this podcast called the Marlo Monday Show, and I mentioned it's kind of like the original presentation for the Rabbit Out of the Hat. It was a topical, thing in
Contemporary for that time.
contemporary thing that was supposed to be a funny thing. So when I first read Christine, I'm like, what is that, his daughter's? I don't even know why this would be called this, but so I appreciate you coming on, John,
my pleasure.
and I hope that we can have you on in the future because we have to talk about the 70s next.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That should be, we could cover that in about a week.
Oh yeah. Oh hey, D'Artagnan.
Hey, Steve.
Ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about the cards first. This is a pack of steamboats. Now this was in the Marlo boxes with all the cards that I have, and I don't know what year they're from, but they are. Here they are, and we're going to use these for the trick. And also, I'm going to put a picture of these decks that I'm using up on the Facebook page, which is Marlo Monday Show, right?
It's a group, yeah.
It's a Facebook group. And so this is a place where we can ask questions, put up video, put up pictures. Just a place to convene in between Marlo Mondays. I did find something interesting on here. It's a little sticker, and you'll be able to see this clearer on the picture on the page or the group. It says 79 cents. Jones Brothers, Gulfport, Mississippi. I don't know if Marlo traveled to Mississippi. He didn't really leave Chicago too much, as I understand it. Perhaps somebody from Mississippi, or maybe John, because Gulfport's not too far away from New Orleans here, sent it to Marlo years ago.
We'll have to find out.
I know. We'll have to call John later and find out. But I'm sure he'll remember. Oh, that's right. I remember sending him that deck of cards years ago. 30 years ago it was. In fact, it was this day. I know. So we're going to use these for the trick. Now, these are kind of odd backs. I'll have these more visible for you guys. Not bad. You can hear that snap. I mean, the quality of the cards, it's just going down so much. So we're going to talk about cutting to the aces. Now, if you take tricks like the Vernon routine in Stars of Magic, you tell a great story and you cut one-handed. Of course, they give you credit for that. You're showing your skill, or any of the multiple cut productions. Of course, that's a skill-related trick. But then you move to spectator cuts to the aces, which by the title apparently gives the impression that they cut to the aces. But in my experience, that is not the case. Ultimately, they do say, "How did you make me cut to the aces?"
Right.
So it kind of defeats the purpose. Now, but there is a trick that brings those two ideas together, and I think it is the best of both worlds. It's out of the Cardician, which was published in 1953. It's called Challenge Cutting the Aces, and it's a brilliant use of this premise, of both premises, and I'm going to demonstrate that now. So first of all, to find the aces, we need to lose them first, obviously. So we will lose those into separate spots. That's good.
Nice.
Separate spots. Not too many cuts. During a multiple shift, Marlo said, one cut. Should I tell them how this is working? They are lost, I should say. Sorry. But we can, they're not on the bottom. They must be somewhere in the middle. They're not near the top, so they must be somewhere in the middle.
Right.
So I will cut.
Okay.
I will cut. Perhaps I know where they are. If you were to cut, and I show that you cut to those aces, you wonder how the heck I made you cut to them. So I will do my fancy cut, because you're going to give me credit anyway. But now, here's where it gets cool. The packets are out of my hands, on the table, and now you choose which packet we use. This, and we'll take the top one off. Let's see if you chose wisely.
Oh.
He did choose wisely. Let's try that again. 3 more to go.
Nice.
Fancy cut. You want to go here again?
No, I think I'm going to go the other one.
Good choice. Well, maybe. I know I could cut to them, but did you choose correctly? See, that's the premise.
Right.
I cut to the aces.
Yes.
You're going to give me that anyway.
Right.
But you choose.
Right.
That's the cool part. Now, do another cut. Pick a packet. Oh, good choice. And let's give it one more shuffle here.
One more for the road.
It's gonna be pretty impressive if I could cut to it. What's even more impressive, if you choose which pile. Not this one.
Nope.
This one.
Right.
Oh.
Ouch.
See, I mean, it's pretty impressive that I. Well, maybe this is your lucky card, the 5. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. It
Nice.
is your lucky card. And see, so you get the credit for the cut.
Oh, you get the credit for the cut.
I mean, you, meaning the
Yeah.
performer, and then the spectator. And I would get, when I did the restaurants, I would have multiple people choose.
Right.
And it was a much more dynamic circumstance.
Right.
And you would get guys that are very analytical, and they'd like try to pick which one it could be.
I like that version.
Yeah, so it's one of my favorites, and I think it's the best of both worlds. And that was in the Cardician challenge, Cutting the Aces. Thank you.